This is the Tango Alpha Lima podcast.
They call me crazy cause I'm facing all my giants. They try to scare me into thinking I can fight it. They tell me I should never even think of trying. But that's just me, I'm gonna live out in defiance.
Welcome, Alphas. Thanks for joining us. We have a great show for you today. We really do. Our guest, Matt Stevens, served in my favorite branch of the service, the Navy. I am always underrepresented, and I'm so glad to have somebody here who's I'm sure written a few books. All right, so our guest, Matt Stevens, served in the Navy for 26 years as a SEAL. Upon retirement from service, Matt served on the leadership team of an emerging technology company from 2017 to 2019 before assuming the role of CEO of the Honor Foundation, where he presently serves. But before we chat with Matt, which is a nice little rhyme, Stacy, how are you?
I'm swell.
Swell.
I'm swell. And Joe, I know you're kind of Mr. Funny Bones and full of just jokes that land flat. So I thought I know you could gape, you could do the guppy mouth all you want and gape at me, but it's true. So I thought I'd ply you with a few jokes that you might be able to put in your man bag for later.
I'm ready to learn.
Something to whip out for the kids. So, how did the Band-Aid honor soldiers?
How's that?
By performing patriotic covers. Okay, maybe not. Okay, how about this one?
I'm here for it.
Why did the veteran become a chef?
Why is that?
They wanted to show their grit in the kitchen.
That's a Southern joke.
What do you mean? Show their grits? Show their grits.
Yeah.
That could come across very wrong in the South. So, why don't pilots make good comedians?
Why?
Their jokes tend to fly over people's heads.
I'm so glad you went that direction and not with anything crashing and burning. It would have been much darker.
No, that's the Air Force theme song. We go into the land and we crash and burn. Like, the funny thing is, when I was in basic training and they taught us the song, I was like, are we really going to talk about going down in flames? What the hell? Isn't that sort of like a self-fulfilling prophecy? Oh, yeah. And then funny thing is, when I got aircrew qualified, I was flying on C-17s primarily to keep my hours. And I was like, so where are all the parachutes? And they're like, dude, we're going to go down a hell too fast to even get a chute on. So don't even worry about it. Like, that's sobering. Anyway.
Was it Ron White that has the joke where he's drinking and he's in this little 2-engine airplane, and somebody says, do you think think we'll be able to land? And he says, oh yeah, we're gonna land. He says, hell, I bet we beat the paramedics there by half an hour. He tells it way better than me, which is why he gets paid to do it, but it's such an awful, dark, hilarious joke.
Have you ever noticed how small planes that are meant to take off, are named after like strange aquatic animals? Or weird, like the beaver, and then there's like the Cub Cadet,
the air beaver.
No, yeah. You ever see a beaver fly? No, nobody's ever seen a beaver fly. No, doesn't make any sense.
I'm gonna throw one.
Toss it.
They call me the beaver tosser. I got Holly about to fall out of her chair.
We're doing a nosedive.
Lickety split.
Listen, that could go bad really, really fast. Joe, help us out.
Okay, listen, Alphas, please stick around. Be patient with us. We'll be right back with Matt Stevens right after the break.
The American Legion is raising awareness about PTSD and veteran suicide by offering hope, camaraderie, and support.
Be the one to help end veteran suicide.
Be the one to save one veteran.
Be the one to ask a veteran in your life how they're doing.
Be the one to reach out when a veteran is struggling.
Go to betheone.org and help the American Legion end veteran suicide.
Will you be the one?
All right, Alphas. Today we're joined by Matt Stevens, former Navy SEAL and CEO of the Honor Foundation. Matt, welcome to Tango Alpha Lima podcast.
Hey, thanks so much for having me. I'm looking forward to this.
Awesome.
It's great to have you, Matt, and thank you for your service. I like to start out our podcasts by getting to know our guests, and particularly you. I know that you've been in, or you served as a SEAL for 26 years. You were an Academy grad, but I think a lot of that's pretty common knowledge if they're familiar with the Honor Foundation and who you are. But what I really want to know is the time before the military, Matt. Like, where are you from originally? I think Binghamton, New York, right? But were you always there? Were you a military brat? What brought you to the military? Are you the first in your family, or is this a generational thing? That kind of stuff. Tell us a little bit about you.
Yeah, so I was born in Binghamton, New York, spent the first 10 years of my life up there, and then folks split up, and my dad worked for IBM, and my sister and I lived with my dad. So we moved to Charlotte, North Carolina when I was in the fourth grade. I do not come from a long line of military service members. My uncle served in Vietnam as an Air Force aircraft mechanic, and then later got into the aircraft maintenance business in the Navy. And so, I graduated high school in 1987. The year before that, Top Gun came out, right? And so
Okay.
that was a big part of interest of, joining the military. And back before 9/11, when my uncle was the maintenance officer at a fighter squadron, F-14 fighter squadron, they did these Tiger cruises. Like, you could come to get on a carrier for a day, sail out of Virginia Beach, and they do some really cool stuff. Like, you're standing on the flight deck and they're taking off and landing. And that kind of hooked me.
Yeah.
And I just started researching. Like, I didn't want to do what everybody else was doing. Like, let's go to college, or, and my worst nightmare was ending up as an insurance salesman, just something super monotonous. And nothing against insurance salesmen. I wish I would have done it because I'd be.
It's too late. You've enraged them now.
Yeah.
A very volatile group of people.
Yeah. And so the more I researched, I wanted to go to college. So, kill two birds with one stone. And I was really focused on the Navy with the great thought process that I'd rather live by a beach than in Minot, North Dakota, or something like that. So that was really the driving factor for Navy, plus Top Gun. And then interestingly, when I did my first ever physical, real one to get into the military, they found a heart murmur kind of thing. And they're like, hey, by the way, you're not going to be able to fly or do anything. So I'm like, huh. And not knowing what I didn't know, cool, then I'm going to be a Navy SEAL, and there wasn't a lot about Navy SEALs back then. There was an article in Parade magazine, which was that Sunday insert in the Sunday paper. And it was called The Toughest Men Alive. And that was all about SEALs. First time I'd ever heard about them. And that really intrigued me. And then I met a couple at the Academy, and again, went down that path of all right, I'm going to focus on that. And I beat the military medical system and got a waiver to.
I was going to ask you, the heart murmur, it's hard to fathom that it would disqualify you from flying, which, okay. But then you were like, yeah, I'm going to be a SEAL. I'm like, how the hell does that even work? If it disqualifies you, so you got a waiver. How did you manage that?
Well, to get into the nitty gritty, you do a pre-commissioning physical.
Okay.
And, there's 1,000 people graduating pretty much at one time. And so they bring in all these doctors from across the Navy. And the guy I got just happened to be the head of cardiology at the Naval Hospital, now Walter Reed. And he's like, hey, I was asymptomatic. It's not actually a heart murmur. It's called Wolff-Parkinson-White syndrome. Okay. And he's like, if you want, I can do some tests. And if it comes out the way we think, then I can write up a waiver. I'm the head of cardiology at Bethesda. So tell me what you want to do. It's I want to be a Navy SEAL. He's like, Roger that. We did the tests. It's kind of like an inpatient, run catheter to your heart. And he's got a rheostat. It's okay, we're going to make you go 200 beats a minute. If you pass out, you're not going to be qualified. If you don't pass out, you're good to go. And it was.
That's pretty awesome. Yeah. Moral of the story, don't let anything hold you back, I guess.
It's part of the selection.
Even a heart murmur.
Yeah.
That's awesome. So, I first of all, I love the awkward thank you for your service between veterans. And I do want to echo that. I think that at any point when it's no longer awkward, then that you need to do a little bit of self-reflection. There should always be that touch of humility to where that regardless of what we went through, it was an honor. It really was an honor. And for every bad time, there were 200 good ones, and 7,000 bored ones. So
I agree.
I want to talk a little bit about that transition for you, because you fought so hard to go in. You did more than your time, 26 years in the Navy. But stepping out of the military can feel like stepping off a moving train, I think. And I think you don't realize it because you're on the train and you're moving. And when you step off, the world kind of comes to a brutal stop. For me, my transition out was very abrupt. I got injured in Iraq. I lost my left leg above the knee. Right leg's messed up, bunch of surgeries, straight through the pipeline, right out of the military. And I wasn't kicked out. I was told that I could do shot records for the rest of my life, which is something no corpsman wants to do. And so, I felt like it was time to step away and do something different. Brother, I had no idea what I was talking about. I don't know whether it would have been the right move to step in, but I don't think that I respected how difficult it was going to be to figure out who the hell I am now. Mm-hmm. After getting out of the military, being a combat corpsman, I got a 3-month-old daughter I'd never met until I got hurt. I'm barely a husband. I'd only been married a year before, I went in the military, and, military time, especially the first year and a half, barely counts as married time. Time they call it time and rank. I call it time and wedding ring. Like, you don't get to really build your relationship. So for me, that transition was very tough. I got none of the classes in the hospital that you get when you get out. None of that stuff this was 2004. They've gotten better about that stuff. But I wanted to ask you, what's one thing you think most veterans don't prepare for emotionally or mentally? And how does THF help sort of bridge that gap? Like, what is something that you think people should be knowing and researching as they're getting out of the military?
Yeah, well, if you don't mind, I'll just rewind a little bit to making the decision to get out. If you're in the situation to make the decision, right? People always told me, hey, you're going to know when it's time. And I never had eyes on staying in for 26 years. My whole mantra was, I'll do this job until I'm not enjoying it and having fun. And by fun, I mean job satisfaction, because it certainly wasn't always fun. And for me, that came when, I finished group command and we had just gone back to Iraq for the second time. And we were standing up another special operations task force headquarters at the 06 level. They're like, hey, it's going to bounce between Marines and SEALs, and we were doing it post command as like a bonus command. I was like, I'm just not interested in doing the same thing I was doing as an 05, as an 04, and a little bit as an 03. So I knew the time was right for me. And so, getting out, it can be abrupt. I used to work for General McChrystal, and he used to tell us, your last act with the military is going to be one of rejection. Either you're going to tell them you no longer want to serve, or they're going to tell you it's time to go home, or you're going to get injured or killed and be told to go home. And so that, if it's on your terms, it's probably easier because you should prepare for it. But to your comment about the speeding train, especially in special ops, we all have pretty big egos, right? And so you wonder, how is this organization going to possibly go on without my awesome leadership and my existence as a shooter or whatever your specialty is? And the system's designed to keep speeding. As soon as you get off the train, it doesn't slow down. It keeps going. And so you find yourself in a position of they don't actually need me. So what value am I, right? How does this work without me? When I invested my whole life to get there, make it through selection assessment training, maybe another one to go to a national mission force or something. And so it's hard, right? Because your identity's completely wrapped up in, at least for us, hey, I'm a SEAL. All my friends are SEALs. My wife's friends are SEALs. It's a family unit. So identity, certainly the lack of purpose anymore, unless you happen to find something great. And then flipping the switch to be able to, instead of talking about we, to talking about me. And you have to advocate for yourself if you're looking for a job, or investors if you're going to start a business, or trying to get into a school if you haven't done school or you're going to a master's program. And so those three things I think are the biggest things that you got to really spend time on before you just go chasing a job, right? And I saw it all through the 90s is, when nothing was going on, we had a lot of guys getting out at relatively junior ranks, and they go to Wall Street business school, and they're making tons of money. So it's that competitive spirit. You're like, oh, well, I got to go do that without really thinking it through, and that's what we get after at the Honor Foundation. It's like, let's pump the brakes a little bit. We're going to figure out what's up here first. Who are you as a human? What makes you tick? What's going to give you fulfillment? It might not be the same. It's probably not going to be the same, but you can certainly be happy. You deserve to be happy. You can find something. Even if you have to take a job that's not fulfilling, then how do you find fulfillment? Is it volunteering for a nonprofit, kids sports coaching, things like that? And so we spend a lot of time going through the introspective piece, which makes, as you can imagine, many in our community aren't really keen with that at the beginning. They're a pretty skeptical group. I was skeptical about it, but man, it sets a great foundation for all the tactical things you got to do in transition. So that's the most important thing that I think people often overlook. And if you do look at the TAP program now, which you said you weren't even privy to, it's very mechanical and it's geared towards huge numbers. So it can't be that personal. So you lose that kind of like you're in the community, then you have no community. And that's like what the American Legions is great, I think, is, it's another community, post-community, right? And you got to find that somehow, some way.
I appreciate that. And I think it's hard to go, like you mentioned, to hit introspection. I don't think that I would have been capable of it without spending a year and a half in the hospital, at least not at that age, being 24. I think naturally I would have eventually went that way, but it's almost when you have to decide that you are no longer a warrior, you're a warrior philosopher. You have to find that thing where you start looking inside and trying to see the world for what it is and not what you want it to be.
Mm-hmm. I think that's interesting too, Joe. Is like, so after I came home from Iraq and my recovery was about 18 months long, and only to end with the surgeon being like, you're not going to spontaneously get better. And much in the way of Joe, they were like, well, you can ride a desk. I'm like, I don't think that's for me. So retirement was where I was going. And I took the TAPS class, which, as you said, very like spray and pray something sticks. And it was terrible. It was useless in my opinion. But I think what I was dealing with was a severe identity crisis.
Mm-hmm.
And how do you go about piecemealing what you're told you can't do anymore physically, or in some cases like that doesn't translate to the civilian side, and particularly, Matt, you tailor to a group of individuals who are like precision war fighters. How do these translate? And so is that the sole purpose of the Honor Foundation? What exactly is this organization? What, other than like providing education, and even then, like, what is the Honor Foundation? Who is your audience, and who are they serving?
Yeah, I mean, to just get to the point, the Honor Foundation is basically a career transition institute for the U.S. Special Operations community. So that's in the Navy, that's SEALs and boat guys, the Marine Corps, Marine Raiders, Army Special Forces, Rangers, pilots from the 160th, some other special mission units, PSYOP, Civil Affairs. In the Air Force, that's the Air Force Special Operations Command. So both the aviation side of it, plus the combat controllers and PJs and the assistants. Shout
out to those guys.
Yeah.
Oft overlooked.
Yeah, no, totally. And so that's the audience. We estimate there's about 60,000 within the SOF community, uniform wearing full timers, right? There's about 70 something with civilians and reservists and all that, and about 2,500 getting out every year. So that's the audience of the Honor Foundation. And what we do is we run a 3-month executive education program. So we actually try to get way ahead of it. 12 to 18 months before you get out is when we recommend people do the program. So it's done at night, like an executive MBA. You have to have the time. So probably not good if you're on deployment. So somewhere in that window, come through the program, 3 months, twice a week in the evenings, and broken into 3 phases. So the first phase or month of it's like all about you. It's the introspective piece. Who are you? We're huge fans of Simon Sinek's Start With Why. We run a several-day seminar on that, about 3 hours each, so again, it's after work. Talk about priorities and preferences, get people talking about themselves through storytelling, because it's, how do you make yourself memorable? Not just, I was petty officer second class, so-and-so, and I did 13 deployments, so it's telling stories that, kind of breaking the military moniker a little bit and getting into the vernacular of the civilian world, regardless of where you want to go. And we culminate phase 1 with a story night where everybody has to get up in front of their peers and tell a story, like a 5-minute story. And they get pretty, some of them are super funny. Some of them are super inappropriate, but a lot of them get pretty deep, like real quick. And a lot of it's based on what happened in your developmental years, right? And that can define you as, you talked about identity. It's not necessarily just you were an Air Force combat photographer. You were somebody before that, and that's probably the core of it. And the second phase, which is another month or so, it's all the tactical tools. Like I got to have a resume, I got to build a LinkedIn profile. Well, probably I got to understand compensation negotiation. How do I do research on a company I might be thinking about working for? Interview techniques, and then we do mock interviews as kind of the capstone event of second phase. And then the third phase, it's all about exposure to what's out there, where you might fit in, what's the art of the possible for you. So we don't know that when people come in. And so we do a bunch of panels, entrepreneur panels, veteran panels. We get business leaders from different business segments to come in. And we go visit local businesses on what we call a trek. We'll visit 3 or 4 businesses in a day around. I live in Virginia Beach, so we'll find some here. Then we'll take them on a slightly longer one in a different city to get them out of their comfort zone. And again, not knowing what folks want to do, we're trying to narrow down that scope. So we expose them to a lot: finance, construction, sports, whatever. Along the way, we pair them with an executive coach. So they have a non-military objective shoulder to somebody to talk to. And we have a huge mentor network of great Americans around the country who just are willing to have a cup of coffee with somebody and tell them what they do, maybe hook them up with somebody else to talk to. And through that whole process, generally you kind of start narrowing down, hey, here's what I think my purpose is in life post-military, or at least we're kind of cutting things away. Like I don't want to do that, and I don't want to do that, which is helpful as well. Because a lot of us, I was one of those guys, like, I don't care what I do. I just don't want to be a government service employee, and I don't want to be a contractor carrying a gun for another organization or selling guns, like I mentioned earlier. But, anything in between is totally fine. So that's, probably more than you wanted, but that's what the Honor Foundation does. And one other thing, we always evolve, and as the workforce evolves and we learn things, but understanding that transition is not just about you. If you have a family or a significant other, it's a team sport, right? And so don't make the mistake of finding a great job and you realize later on that your family doesn't want to move. That's what I gave my family first right of refusal. I could live anywhere else on the planet and be happier than Virginia Beach, but I'm in Virginia Beach because that's where they wanted to be. And that's okay, right? And so we also run a program for spouses and significant others, centered around strengths and communication. So, that's been pretty, it's been catastrophically successful.
Well, that's a good problem to have, I suppose. Yeah. Matt, when you first joined the organization, did you actually take the courses, or was part of the courses? Did you participate at all as a recipient, or did you go straight into helping manage the organization?
Oh, yeah. I am not the founder of the Honor Foundation. I've been doing it for about 6.5 years now. But I got involved because this whole thing started in San Diego with a very small crew of West Coast SEALs and boat guys. And as they grew and came to Virginia Beach, which is the East Coast hub of, naval special warfare, they had a little opening ceremony. And I think I was the only group commander in town, and somebody had to go kind of give the state of affairs speech to this at this opening ceremony. And so I asked them to come talk to me about the organization, tell me about it. And frankly, they came in and briefed me, and I thought there was no way that you could deliver on that. And so I called their bluff. I decided to get out, and I went to the course, the very first course in Virginia Beach, really with a mindset, I'm going to audit this thing and see if it's actually, if you can deliver on what you say you can deliver. Because obviously, you got to be able to deliver in our community. And I expected nothing, and it was frankly game-changing. It was so good that I was blown away. It helped me tremendously, helped my family tremendously. And I'd done a couple other transition programs that were out there, and this one was far and above the best one. And so I just asked to stay involved. I went and did something else for about 18 months. I wanted to be in the tech startup world. Worked for a great small drone company for about 18 months. And then got invited to be on the board of directors. And then when the founder decided to move on after 5 years of founding and growing it, threw my name in the hat. And I'm just lucky to be here.
I think it shows a bit of your caliber of character when you go into a program to sort of audit it, but also with the vulnerability to learn.
Yeah.
And I think, maybe for me, in my case, maybe it takes a touch of getting humbled. Maybe it was the moving train that you stepped off of that sort of put you in the right mindset. And because of that, this is, as CEO, you've helped guide these hundreds of veterans into civilian life. But I feel like even vets with a good head on their shoulders, and this is just like your attack on insurance salesman earlier, it's kind of hard to word things in a way where somebody's not going to get offended. But I feel like vets, even with good heads on their shoulders, are usually self-sufficient enough that they have trouble dealing with they'll see the desire for direction and collaboration between non-military civilians as neediness. And that could be a very difficult thing to deal with, especially when you're early out and you do see the separation before you sort of let the world back in a little bit. You see so much separation between you and others. It's difficult. So what makes, do you think, the mindset of a special operator do you think it's the adaptability? Like, what is it that you think helps these people? Do you guys ever address the fact that civilians are nothing like what they've been dealing with for the last 5, 10, 20 years? And how do you approach that challenge?
Yeah, I mean, I think special operators, some have a unique skill set. Adaptability might be it, right? And the reason we focus on that is on special ops is because you're probably more indoctrinated as a special operator because you volunteered to serve, volunteered again, you made it through the selection assessment training program. You're one of the less than 30% who made it. And then in many cases, you're taking the brunt of some of the heaviest kinetic operational stuff. Not all of it, and absolutely not to degrade anybody else's service, and so it can actually be harder transitioning out of that, than if you're joining because, you had no other options or whatever. You did 4 years and whatever. It's slightly different. So as far as the skill sets that helps them, it's actually a bigger challenge because there's more mental blocks from a lot of these guys. Like, well, I'm not going to ask for help. The ability to ask for help is one of the biggest things. And as far as the civilian military disconnect, we just expose them to a lot of great civilians who are willing to help. And it's actually better when they haven't served because people see like they don't work any less hard than we do. And there's great Americans all over the place, right? There's dirtbags all over the place too, including in the military, right? I'm a believer that just because you serve doesn't make you an awesome human, nor are you entitled to anything. And I think, we kind of get in the problems of every veteran's like so great that we got to do everything for them. No, they got to keep working. And if they don't perform, then, cut them away.
There could be a dirtbag in this room right now.
Thank you.
It's funny because, and not to, jump in here, but like the pedestal that wounded veterans get put on is dangerous. It's a dangerous thing to tell someone you don't have to contribute or work or do anything anymore.
I agree.
If you don't want. And you feel like you are on an island, and an island, I don't care how nice it is, eventually you're Tom Hanks. You know what I'm saying? You're just desperate for human connection, and you can't find that when nothing is expected of you.
Agree. 100%.
Yeah. Speaking of like being told one way or another, Matt, you were talking about when you got out that you pursued you wanted to pursue something in was it tech? Was that
Mhm.
right? Um if you could go back and in time and talk to your like intervene, would you have changed anything about your course or your path, or what advice would you have given yourself at that time during your transition? Would it be more of like a pep talk or a dude, don't do XYZ, or do? What does that look like for you?
I have zero regrets going into that world. I was 48 when I retired, I think 47, 48. And I didn't want to go back to school and get an MBA. I hadn't gotten one. I'd done my master's through the Marine Corps Command and Staff College, but I didn't want to get a master's. So I wanted to go to a small business where I could learn on the job quicker than in a big corporation. And I did a tour in the Pentagon when I was active duty, and I absolutely hated it. 23,000 people walking into the building every day at the same time, most of them anyway, and then 22,000 walk out at 1,600, while the other 1,000 of us like grinded it out until 10 o'clock every night. And I didn't like that huge corporate environment. So I wanted something small, something kind of like, hey, let's build the airplane as we're flying, with huge opportunity if it hit, and I was retired, so I had a bit of a cushion versus a huge salary, right? And so I went tech startup. I can learn more in a smaller environment, learn faster because everybody's doing everything. If we're bought by some big company, then I'll be set for life. Didn't happen that way. It went the other way. But I learned so much, and I'm grateful for that opportunity. And I think a lot of times, if you overanalyze it, you get stuck in doing nothing. And at some point, I'm just like, hey, I'm going to try this. I can do it for, a year. And that's another issue guys and gals have to get over, is like, you feel like the sense of loyalty we had in the military. Like, I can't leave. They gave me a job. No, the reality is, if it's not a good fit, you can leave after 2 days. You can leave after a month. We want to try to avoid the job hopping. And I think the average tenure for veterans' first jobs is like 9 months, right? So we try to, get in front of all the issues that we talked about earlier. So that's lengthened, but it's still, at the end of the day, if you want to grow, maybe you have to leave, and that's okay. I had that issue when I was ready to leave. It's like, man, they gave me a shot. I'm not sure I should go or not, but you got to take care of yourself and your family.
I think that's what I had to learn early on too, is that when we're in the military, and especially I'm sure for special forces operators, it's like you said, it's to the nth degree, where failure could cost lives. And fear of failure or not failing is not an option. But when you get out on this side of the fence, you have to be able to accept that as part of what could be for a positive outcome. That shouldn't fear that failure, because it may put you in the direction or the path that you need to go. So when things sort of fall apart in one direction, you're meant to go another. And I found that to be true. Joe talks about there are three things that failed in his life that led to positive outcomes. And he could talk about one of them being his gun and not packing it the right way. But anyway, that saved his life.
I'll quantify that in a minute. It sounds awful.
No, but for me, I had gotten out and then became, I bought a business, and then the economy crashed. But, what I took that as a massive failure on my part, when really in reality, had that not happened, had I not experienced failure, I would have not pursued a different path or a different course that turned out completely positive. And so I can definitely hear what you're saying in that regard. Joe, do you want to quantify? Did I just misspeak for you?
In my defense, okay, on September 17th, 2004, this was 11 days after Labor Day, and on Labor Day, we lost an entire squad of Marines. As the corpsman, obviously, it was just absolutely devastating. If I don't sleep, that's why. I'm doing well. Don't worry about me. But if I so that morning I woke up and decided to eat over getting my gear perfect. And so where I normally would carry one of the mountain bags that sat down on my hip, I couldn't carry my weapon on my hip. I would carry it on my leg or on my chest. And so that morning my weapon had remained on my hip because I went and got breakfast in the chow hall because we were about to go out for 3 days. And it was the first time going out after Labor Day. So I was like, I need a good meal because I know the human mind and the human body are very closely connected, and I need breakfast. I need eggs. So I went and ate, and then we were on the road. And my 9mm was on my hip, which is out of an entire 6.5 months or so of deployment. It was probably on my hip for about 3 days at the start when I was trying to figure out where my gear should go. Mm-hmm. We get there, we have no comms, we're 40 minutes out, we have no comms with battalion, and as you can imagine, we are puckered to the max after Labor Day. We just lost an entire squad. 3rd platoon was broken down as combat ineffective, and we were merged in with 1st and 2nd platoon. This is Fox Company 2-1. And so we get there, we're working on the radio. I don't know why they want the corpsman to work on the radio. It wasn't bleeding, but whatever. So I'm working on the radio. And we finally get that fixed, and we get a call from one of our forward camps that says that one of the Marines had cut the back of his leg open while stepping over a tent peg. I'm sure they were throwing knives. I don't ask questions. It was what it was. And I'm not joking. I'm sure that's what happened. But so we jump in a vehicle. Again, my 9mm is on my hip. We go across the bridge. We pick them up. And I'm like, this guy needs sutures. It's 17 sutures minimum. So we load up in 3 Humvees, and we're going to drive all the way back to sew this guy's leg up. First vehicle gets hit with a roadside bomb. We're on an overpass. We can't circle the wagons. It's a straight line dismount. On an overpass. We can't push through because there's another one up there somewhere, or chances are. Sure enough, I jump out, went running up to try to help, got hit. This is your story, not mine. I just want to clarify, but when I hit the ground and I rolled over and I was trying to sort of assess, my hearing was coming back. There's 3 things that somebody checks when they've been severely wounded. Am I dead or dying? Where's my weapon? How's my junk? And for me, when I hit step 2, and it's in that order, and you can ask anybody that's been good and blown up, the moment things calm down, it's like, how much is my life affected? So, but I looked around, I could not find my 9mm anywhere. My left leg was traumatically amputated above the knee. My right leg is a complete mess over, I'll say 3 dozen surgeries, but it was around, 36, 38 surgeries that I had. And whatever hit my 9mm would have went through me like a hot knife through butter. And there's no world where I would have been here today. They replaced the entire volume of my blood over the next 72 hours. So I will always choose breakfast. If I was to ever write a memoir,
I love that.
It would be called Always Choose Breakfast.
Speaking of memoirs, Matt, every Navy SEAL seems to have their own own book. At least some sort of book. Is there a book in your future?
Absolutely not. No, it's embarrassing. No. It's embarrassing to the 99.9% of the community who don't do that. But I'll just leave it at that. You won't see my book out anytime ever.
Well, damn. I was going to ask you what would the topic be? It doesn't even have to be a nonfiction. It doesn't even have to be an auto. It could be, because gosh, one of my favorite authors was a former Navy SEAL who writes nonfiction. He's fantastic at it. Anyway, I think we should do a lightning Q&A round. What do you think, Joe? So Matt, we're going to have a little bit of fun. So we want to learn a little bit more about you, and this is going to be like lightning rounds of questions. So don't overthink it. We're just gonna have a little fun. Joe, why don't you ask the first round?
All right. Social security number, mother's maiden name.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Yeah.
What is your luggage code? 1.
Take me to your leader. All right.
Okay.
What do you think the funniest Navy SEAL trope is? Is it the book writing? Do you think that's a thing that carries over?
Yeah, it's either that or good hair. Yeah.
Good hair.
Oh, good hair.
I never could have done it.
Yeah. I love that. Yeah. And within the teams, I like to, East Coast guys make fun of the West Coast guys.
Yeah.
And, East Coast guys actually work for a living. West Coast guys play volleyball all day for PT.
Oh gosh, speaking of the Top Gun, I think about the volleyball scene.
Yep.
I could just plug in Navy SEALs. I've got it. Mental picture with good hair, all with good hair. Okay. Do you have a favorite dad joke or a favorite Navy SEAL joke?
I'm terrible at jokes. So next round.
Damn.
All right. So had they already banned all the songs and quotes from Top Gun when you went through, or did you cause the ban?
Well, not Top Gun specific, but in SEAL training, every class has to sing anytime you're on the move. And I don't know if you've ever been to Coronado, but the training base is on the other side of what they call the Silver Strand. So it's like a half-mile run to the Chow Hall. And every PT, in those events where we did run as a formation, but you always had that have a cadence going, and they were wildly inappropriate.
Nice.
Base housing.
I'm going to need a demonstration, Matt. I'm going to need a demonstration.
You don't want to be banned from this. One was called the S&M Man, so I'll just leave it at that.
I'm going to open up a tab.
Yeah, so that is all banned. No singing. No singing or marching.
Yeah, I'm getting shot down left and right here. This stinks. Okay.
It's OPSEC. He's just trying to keep things safe.
That's fair. Do you have a favorite book or an author?
Yeah, I read a lot of fiction, actually, just as an outlet. And interestingly, there's guys I used to work with that, have written pretty good fiction books. Brad Taylor is a former Army guy that writes a really good action series. Who wrote forgetting his pen name, but it's a series now. Jack Carr, I'm sorry. I love his stuff. On the nonfiction stuff, I was listening to one of your other podcasts, and they said the same thing, but Simon Sinek's Start With Why, Leaders Eat Last. I love his series of books, very thoughtful, human, that all his leadership lessons resonate with me. All right.
And favorite movie, and why is it Tombstone? I'm just joking.
Let's see. People make fun of SEALs all the time, so it's absolutely not Navy SEALs. Generally, my favorite movie is Top Gun. Just because it's
nice. Okay. I'm surprised how well it held up. So I was waiting on my son. I've been fighting him. He's about to turn 13, and he's been wanting to watch it since he was 8. And I'm like, I want you to watch it when you can get all of it. When you've had your little heart pitter patter around somebody before. Like, I just wanted to wait a little while just so that you can understand the whole movie. And that's the rule with my kids. It's not content, it's maturity. Like, when you're at a place where you can watch a movie, that's when you watch it. And I hadn't watched it in years, and we just, I guess about 2 weeks ago, watched it. I cannot wait. I haven't seen Maverick. I was saving it for him because I wanted to watch it with him. I am so stoked to watch that. Yeah.
Your idea of screening movies for your kids is really great, Joe. I wish I would have applied that because when my youngest came and said they wanted to watch Tropic Thunder, I failed to actually go and review what the heck it was about. So we were sitting in the theater and I was opening to a soundtrack of Booty Sweat. And I was like, why are we here right now?
Having an experience is why you're
Parent
there.
failure number 1,225.
It's a lesson learned. That's all. It's not a failure.
Yeah. I went to see the Miami Vice movie with my sister, having no idea how absolutely sexually charged that movie was. It was like,
that would be awkward.
I love my sister to death, so we were kind of like half cuddled, and then we just got further and further away.
Oh no!
I should have known.
That would be pretty bad.
My wife's cousin came to visit me after I was in a separate training. She just happened to be in town, and we'd been married for like 3 weeks, maybe 4 weeks, just finished the honeymoon, and her cousin, female, came to visit. Went out to dinner, like, let's go watch a movie. So we went together and watched Boogie Nights, which is
no! Oh wow!
Like,
yes.
I feel like a sinner right now.
Hopefully you weren't sitting in between them. That would have made it even more awkward.
My wife wasn't there. That's what made it more uncomfortable. It's like,
oh no! Oh, that would be worse. Yeah. Gosh. Okay. Do you
Jeez.
have a favorite quote by somebody?
I do, but I'm not going to be able to remember it.
Is it booty sweat?
It's not.
Yes.
Booty
You
sweat.
know, I've got several. I love The Man in the Arena from Teddy Roosevelt, but as a short one, only because I can only remember a few. It's John Paul Jones, the father of the U.S. Navy, said, "He who will not risk cannot win." Right, and I apply that to, you can't be safe all the time. You can't just sit on your haunches, and like sometimes you got to hang it out there. A lot of times, whether it's personal life, professional life, trying new things. Go for it. Do a risk assessment, of course, but.
Nice.
Matt, you're a rock star, and I can't begin to thank you so much. I think that especially as we age a little bit, we start to realize how precious time is, and there's nothing worse than having somebody waste your time. I call those people assholes. They ask you questions they don't want answers to. You want to talk to me about nutrition or working out or whatever, and then you just want me to agree with your preconceived notions. Like, don't waste my time. Like, I could be doing something useful or watching Top Gun. So I want to thank you for the time that you've spent with us today. And I want to tell the Alphas, please be sure to visit honor.org and follow the social media channels linked on the site. We're going to have the URL and social media links in our show notes, so don't worry. And we've covered a lot today, but before we sign off, is there anything else that you want to share with our Alphas that we didn't get a chance to discuss?
Yeah, there is. First of all, thank you for having me. Appreciate the opportunity. One of the things that why special operations exists is to test, evaluate new tactics, techniques, and procedures, right? And then that should ultimately translate to the larger general purpose force, right? And I use the analogy a lot. Like if you look at a soldier from, a tier 1 unit on September 11th, 2001, he's all kitted out with night vision goggles, high-speed stuff, ballistic helmets that are way smaller. If you look at an 101st soldier on the same day, he looks like a Vietnam era guy. He's got a flat jacket, old equipment. If you fast forward that 20 plus years after, being in Afghanistan and Iraq, they pretty much look the same. So a lot of the equipment, the tactics, techniques did translate to the general purpose force. I say that as an analogy because at the Honor Foundation, we kind of operate on the same premise. We can be agile. We haven't taken any government money, not that we wouldn't want it, but we can change our curriculum any day of the week, and I can do it like that. But our goal, really, our vision is to be able to be a catalyst for transforming the entire DoD transition system, which we all agree is mediocre at best. So we've started a new project. It's called Vector Accelerator, and that's taking the best of what we do and opening it up to any transitioning veteran or any veteran. It's vectoraccelerator.org. So I'd ask that you maybe link those notes and social media handles to your site as well. But that audience, what's missing in the mechanical TAP programs is none of the introspective work. And so I think that's the most important thing we do at the Honor Foundation. It was the most important for me. So we want to share that online, at your own pace, but Vector Accelerator, check it out. And it'll take you through a very introspective journey.
Is that for like people who are about to get separated, or can somebody like myself who's been out for a few years?
You can sign up, Casey, no problem. And we get a lot of folks in the Honor Foundation who didn't have great transitions. And so we take them 5-10 years post-retirement. We get, recidivist people who went through the program, decided to stay in, which is a great outcome, in my opinion. Stay in as long as you want to. And then they want to read blue. So we've had people come through our program. But for Vector, the ideal time, of course, is before you get out. But if you miss that, it can be after you got out. It can be after you got out 5 years and you just want to kind of reset and think about the important things like who you are, what makes me tick, and what's the path forward.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Matt, thank you so much for all you're doing for veterans, or military and service members and veterans, and especially the Special Forces operators, who are a unique bunch of people. Y'all are great. And I hope that you do reconsider writing a book. I'm sure it would be tremendous. Write a fiction for us.
Write a children's book.
Maybe Joe and I can collaborate about, what's the best department of the Navy? The
There we go.
men's department or the little boys department.
Nice.
Marines always hit me on that one.
Hey, little guys, you need a ride somewhere?
Oh boy.
Little fellers, get your crayons.
All
Come
you
on.
sailors out there, you guys are top notch, but Air Force will still reign supreme. Okay, I'm just kidding, Matt. Thank you for coming on the show, and thank you, everybody. Alphas, stick around. We've got some scuttlebutt for you right after the break.
Family and community engagement. The American Legion meets the unique needs of local communities. We are veterans strengthening America. We are the American Legion.
Okay, Alphas, we hope you had a great break, like suspiciously great, like you have forgotten something. It's so bad. Oh my gosh,
Sure.
The iron is on. And now it's time for Scuttlebutt.
I've got some scuttlebutt for you.
You've got Scuttlebutt.
I've got some. It sounds like I need a cream for that. I've got some scuttlebutt.
I didn't say
okay.
scoot butt.
Yesterday was Memorial Day, and we observed it over the long weekend. So, in honor of Memorial Day observance, I took to Reddit, as I often do, to see what posts I could find and read regarding the designated holiday, and see what the average American was thinking about it. Ask an American. That's a great handle. Ask the question: how do you feel about how your fellow Americans see Memorial Day? At FBI Open Up Now, which is a great handle, weighed in with, quote, "I don't care. I pour one out for my homies every year. Most civilians aren't affected, so they don't understand. And for corporate America, it's just turned into another cash grab." Well, I hear you. Open up for the FBI. Oh, here's a great handle. At Meatyloaf. At Meatyloaf said, "This reads as if you're trying to guilt people. Memorial Day is a day of remembrance, but also a day of celebration. I have family that made the ultimate sacrifice so we could be where we are today." This is very true. I hear you. "I can tell you that they probably would want people to have fun rather than sit around forcing displays of gratitude for an entire day or weekend. As much as such, Memorial Day has become the de facto start for the summer season." I hear you. At Trixie Lurker, whoever's lurking on Trixie, stop it. You could be arrested.
Chill.
For that.
Can you chill, please? Trixie's getting uncomfortable.
That's sketchy. So anyway, they said, to nearly every American, it seems that Memorial Day is just a long weekend, a day for pool parties and grilling. It seems that many Americans don't even know what Memorial Day is supposed to be about. I don't know about that. To which Machagogo responded, "First, I completely disagree with this take. I happen to agree, Machagogo. It is utter horse poopy," which I think.
Oh wait, hold on. We're gonna have to edit that out. Did you say horse poopy?
Well, they wrote horse poopy. I would have said horse shit, but that's different.
I'm gonna have to mark that. There we go.
Second, is your expectation that all should sit around somberly in their house and sulk for the weekend. I assure you that those who sacrifice for the country didn't want you to do so, or want everyone to do so, or would put their lives on hold for 3 days every year. I tend to agree. I think, we live for those who can't. I understand that there's a measure of reverence and reflection. I do that on Memorial Day. Joe, you lost folks.
We have those moments, but those moments aren't always public. And to be honest with you, I kind of enjoy the celebration side of it. So I don't really get offended when people say Happy Memorial Day, because if they knew, they would never say that. And so if it's relevant and if there's a way to do it in a respectful manner, I'll say, hey. Not everybody takes it that way. But I know where your heart is when you don't say something like that to be offensive.
Sure.
We're going to have those times. It may be in the shower. It may be when you're brushing your teeth. It may be because a song comes on when you're driving, but sometime over that weekend, you're going to tear up if you've lost somebody.
Yeah.
But being celebrated and being loved. And I'll tell you what, if somebody used my death as an excuse for their life to fall apart, I would haunt them. I
Yeah.
know that these people want me to thrive. I know that they want me to live, and I push myself because of those people.
Yeah.
So yes, it is a somber celebration, as I like to call it.
Yeah, and I tend
That's
to
just my
agree. Yeah,
side.
I tend to agree, Joe. But I would also say this, that for most people who've lost somebody downrange, every day is a day to honor them through the way you live your life. And
Yeah.
I would also argue that when I feel the most somber about my losses are the days when they actually died. So Memorial Day weekend is just a reminder. Obviously, Memorial Day came from, it was World War One, right? Remembrance Day. And so it sort of evolved over time. But I will say this, and this is the last comment that was left that I wanted to annotate here to share with the alphas. At Sleep Again, which is a great handle, responded, "I love seeing people be happy and hanging out with friends and family having a good time. A few minutes reflection and then a long party to celebrate what we've got seems like a wonderful way to celebrate the holiday like Memorial Day. Every funeral I've ever been to has involved food, drink, and a celebration of life, as well as mourning and tears, and those were personal and immediate for everybody present." So I tend to agree with Sleep Again, that
Again.
there again and again, that there is there is mourning and laughing in equal measures, and it should be that way, a celebration of life.
And it's personal. It looks different for everyone.
Yeah.
You know, some people have to write a book. Some people have to write music. Some people have to, take a walk in the woods. Some people want to be by themselves, and then some people want to feel alive and be around their family and grill some good food, and
Or burn it.
everybody or burn it. Yeah.
Yeah. So alphas, if you are not on Reddit, or if you are, get on Reddit and follow us at r/Tango Alpha Lima. Share your thoughts. Let us know what some ideal Memorial Day observance habits that you have are, and let us know what your legions are doing on Memorial Days, and maybe how you can adapt some fun and celebratory measures into your Memorial Day observances.
Jalapeno brats. You seen those? You can get the all natural ones. They sell them in like Publix and stuff now.
That sounds like it goes spicy in and out.
I don't know. I put them in the wrong way and then puke them up. Anyway, President Donald Trump's executive order.
Great transition, Joe. Great transition.
That was smooth as butter, wasn't it?
Well, smooth as something.
President Donald Trump's executive order that he says would end racial indoctrination in schools, which is great. That's fantastic. I didn't know it was going to be that easy. Has forced several resignations in the United States Naval Academy in Annapolis. According to a new report, the New York Times said that at least 2 faculty members have resigned over the ban on nearly 400 books at the library of the Naval Academy. Banned books, that's how you get people to read them.
Yeah.
I mean,
yeah,
no joke.
It's funny you say that, because I had actually heard about this, and there was this little bookstore right off campus in Annapolis that when they found out about the 400 banned books, they actually went out and bought all the titles and put them in the front of their store. 'Cause
Exactly.
you're right. Yeah. No,
it's called the Streisand effect, I think, isn't it? Is that the one where she tried to hide her house from the media? And so it actually is. I think that's the name. When you try and hide something from people, it just makes people want to read it more.
Yeah, I guess so. I don't know. I guess so. Yeah, but
I'm sure it's been around longer than Barbara Streisand, but that's the way I've always heard it. So, but the New York Times said that their sources spoke on the condition of anonymity, which is always a word that I love saying.
Anonymity. But I think, before you move on to that, though, I think the real headline for this particular article that you're sharing is that 2 faculty members resigned, but they also had 18 faculty that opted to retire early because of it. So there was quite a bit of a backlash, or a wave, making of a wave at the Naval Academy.
Yeah, well, 2 faculty members doesn't sound that, but losing 20 faculty members over the course of the next year or so, that's pretty severe. So the New York Times said their sources spoke on condition of anonymity.
And anomalies.
And and aren't those the animal or the little
anemones
parasites that
No, they're the fish. The clownfish live in them,
Oh yeah, because they're immune to them. Thanks, Nemo. You taught me something. The Times also said that leadership initially pushed back on the executive order because of the Institute is an academy and not a college. The Naval Academy said in a statement that it was reviewing all previously scheduled events to ensure that they have aligned with executive orders and military directives, according to the Times. So in case you're not familiar with the book removal at the U.S. Naval Academy, the name of the book removal project was dubbed Operation Caged Bird, so named for one of the books removed from the Naval Academy's library, Maya Angelou's I Know Why the Caged Bird Sings. So books on the Holocaust, histories of feminism, civil rights, and racism, and Maya's famous autobiography, I Know Why the Caged Bird Sings, were among the nearly 400 volumes removed from the U.S. Naval Academy's library this week after the Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth's office ordered the school to get rid of ones that promote diversity, equity, and inclusion. The Navy provided the list of 381 books that have been taken out of its library. The move marks another step in the Trump administration's far-reaching effort to purge so-called DEI content from federal agencies, including policies, programs, online and social media postings, and curriculum in schools. In addition to Angelou's award-winning Tome,
That's a tome.
Tomb
In her
Tomb is a different. Oh, good heavens!
That's a bit of a English language close.
The list includes Memorializing the Holocaust, which deals with Holocaust memorials, Half American, about African Americans in World War II, A Respectable Woman, about the public roles of African American women in the 19th century New York, and Pursuing Trayvon Martin, about the 2012 shooting of the black 17-year-old young man in Florida that raised questions about racial profiling. In a statement, the Navy said officials went through the Nimitz Library catalog using keyword searches. So they didn't even read the books. That's the thing that bothers me. You're using keyword searches to identify books that require further review. Now,
I think this is how the Enola Gay got taken down from. Listen, okay, as a combat photographer and a graduate of the DINFOS school, which is the Defense Information School, I'm part of some Facebook groups that are private, but they talk a lot about this particular order that brought down a lot of imagery and sources related to DEI, as they keep alluding to in this particular article. But they talked about how the Enola Gay was on the chopping block because of a search engine thing. They just went solely off of search engines, and gay was part of the Enola Gay name. Yeah. And so it got on I'm like, this is a bomber, so named after a woman. But anyway, that's what happens when you use keyword searches. Anyway, continue.
I'm just really curious exactly what further review entailed. That's what I want to know. I mean, it's one thing to find a book, but further review, were the books actually read, and by who? Was it one individual that read the book after it was flagged by keyword? And did one person get to make this determination? I'm just curious.
Know. But Joe, you wrote 2 books. You're writing the blurb for the second book right now, and so something is summarized on the back of the book. And it's, how many words do you have for a blurb on the back? It's like
170 to 200, give or take. Yeah.
Okay, so that's what's put in the keyword search. So if you mention something along the lines of, I was a poor white kid growing up in, where are you from? Georgia. So if that happened
said so dismissively,
and they were like, Georgia. Take everything out that says Georgia, and they typed in a keyword search of books containing Georgia in the blurb, and then Joe's book is on that chopping block, or at least up for scrutiny. But again, who does the further deep dive into whether it?
Especially when, I've read things that I thought were going to be very anti, and they actually were very fair. I love when I read something and I go into it with a mindset like, this sounds like it's going to be very preachy, and it's actually not. Like, it's very.
I think you're talking about the Bible, Joe. Preachy, get it?
I use silly goose.
I know.
Horse poopy. So for me, honestly, I think that it just comes down to, I feel like even if a summary, and you're giving a vibe, a lot of times, some of these things, especially if it's somebody's story, there's not always an agenda. Maybe it's, or the agenda is to tell a story. And so a lot of times, even if something on the back might read where if you go into something with a mindset of looking for problems, you're going to see problems.
Mm-hmm.
But I think that also there's a lot of stories that start with a problem and ends with a resolution. What's the point of a story that ends with just more questions? I think that I'm sure out of these books that were banned, there are stories that are actually more positive than they, than they're being treated as, is my point.
Mm-hmm.
Anyway, so in a statement, the Navy said officials went through the Nimitz Library catalog. Let's see, they determined 400 books were removed out of a 900 identified in the search. And the Pentagon has said the academies are fully committed to executing and implementing President Trump's executive orders, as I would be if I was told that I was no longer going to receive my pay if I didn't grow a beard out. I would happily grow a beard out because that's just what I have to do to make sure that I still receive my paycheck. And that,
I would say that also all the other academies, West Point and Air Force Academy, are also reviewing their titles as well. Where they are in that execution phase, I don't know. But this article is pretty interesting.
It's interesting, all right. But you know what? I think that hopefully this will only encourage people to read this stuff, because I think that especially if you disagree with something, you need to know it. So if this is something that you wholeheartedly agree with or disagree with, I say read a couple of the books and see what you think afterwards.
Yeah, put it on your Kindle and take it to Busch Gardens. Here's why, everybody. Alpha's Busch Gardens Williamsburg is offering free tickets to U.S. military veterans and guests for a limited time in honor of Military Appreciation Month. Yes, this seems a little bit advanced, but they have to get everybody in before Military Appreciation Month. Busch Gardens said, "We are proud to honor active duty military veterans and their families with a complimentary visit to one of our parks," said Mark Swanson, CEO of United Parks and Resorts. "We are incredibly grateful to all members of the military for their commitment and dedication to serving our country. The Waves of Honor program extends a small token of our appreciation to those who are serving or who have served. We look forward to welcoming military service members, veterans, and their families for a fun-filled day in one of our parks. The offer provides complimentary tickets for the veterans up to 3 guests to Busch Gardens Williamsburg or Tampa or SeaWorld in Tampa. Veterans can purchase up to 6 additional tickets for 50% off. Gosh, grab the gaggle of family and get your butts to Busch Gardens with your Kindle and your books. Service members and veterans must provide proof of service." Hey, all you Legionnaires who are going to be at the convention in the fall, you can get on down to Tampa, visit one of these parks, get your tickets, get 50% off additional tickets. Visit the website. We're going to have that in our show notes. Thank you to all the folks at Busch Gardens, Williamsburg, Tampa, and SeaWorld. And we'll see you guys in Tampa in one of the amazing parks.
Outstanding. I think that if there's anything we've learned here, it's that we have a lot to learn. I've got 400 books on my TBR, which was already 200 books long. Do you know how long it's going to take me to get through all this?
As somebody who has an insatiable appetite for books, I'm going to say not long.
Not long.
I tend to, well, here's the thing. I have really bad vision. And so while reading a tangible book was one of my biggest time hobbies, I found that I have a newfound appreciation for Audible books and listening to books. And it gives me the freedom to listen to them in my car or when I'm doing chores, things like that. And so I can consume a lot more titles when they're being read to me by somebody else, which is fantastic, especially if they've got a Joe Worley type of voice.
Oh,
give me your
Joe
best.
Worley?
Give me your best book narration voice, Joe.
Hi guys, my name's Joe Worley. I'm here
That's
to tell you
not
a
it.
little about
No,
Busch
no.
Gardens and SeaWorld.
Something deeper.
Something deeper.
Yes, that's it.
In a world where
In a world that offers complimentary tickets to veterans.
are forced to take showers.
Ew, what?
What?
That's not where we're going.
That wasn't me.
Goodness sakes.
Can't take me anywhere.
Favorite book, Joe? What's your favorite
Favorite book? Weirdly, I've been on a sci-fi kick, and there's something about Neil Stephenson's Snow Crash. I feel like it really jumped the gun on what we understand about like the digital world. I mean, there's almost like a metaverse inside this book that was written, 40 years ago. It's really fascinating when you take what the 80s thought the 2000s were going to be like. It's really, really cool. They had so much hope and optimism, even in like a post-apocalyptic setting. I've been hung up on that one for a while. And I like political intrigue too. I started reading Shogun like 3 times about a decade ago and couldn't get going. And when I finished it, it jumped into my top 5 immediately. But if I had to pick one right now, it would be Snow Crash, Shogun, and then The Long Walk by Stephen King, which they are working on a movie. Can we just all please pray that is done faithfully? Please. Please.
There you go, Stephen King. If you're listening and you've sold the rights to the book, please be sure to listen to Joe's plea and make it a good one.
They've been working on doing a Long Walk adaptation so long that Emilio Estevez was originally going to play the teenage boy that is the main character. That's how long they've been working on this book.
Well, that's a long time ago.
I still think he could pull it off. He looks great.
Yes. 12. He looks like he's 12.
All right.
All right, Alphas. Thanks for listening. You can subscribe to our podcast, our newsletter, or send us mail and guest recommendations at legion.org/Tango Alpha Lima. And Joe,
We'll see you next week.